Welcome to Bald Guy DIY. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can take the classic family game Jenga, the extreme version, and turn it into a giant version that you can play outside with family and friends. I love playing Jenga, unless I'm the one to knock the tower over, but it's so much fun as you poke and prod trying to find the right piece before time runs out and your family gets impatient with you. So it really appealed to me to make the extreme version of the Jenga, which takes angled pieces instead of straight pieces, which makes the tower lean and topple in unpredictable ways. I'm going to show you how we can cut these nice angled edges with a table saw and then finish it 3 different colors to add that pop of contrast. Then we're also going to make a crate that doubles as both a carrying case for all the pieces and a base to build upon. Stick around to the end and find out how we add a shocking twist to make the whole thing a little more exciting. Ow! Let's get started. I'm using 2x6 material, so the first thing I need to do is cut it down to length. I'm going to set the blade height so it's just high enough to clear the height of the material. And then I'm going to set the fence to 10.5 inches, and that's the length that I want each block to be. I have someone else holding the other end to make this part a little less dangerous. Next, I'm going to move the fence to 4.5 inches, and then I'm going to angle the blade at 20 degrees. Need to make sure the blade height is still going to clear the block, and then I push my block through. No, you don't need to move the piece out with your fingers. The next block will just push it out of the way. Three done, 51 to go. After those are done, I'm going to move the fence again, this time to 3 inches and 7/16, which is the finishing width that I want for the blocks, and then run it through. Once again, 3 down, 51 to go. Now I'm simply going to take a big stack of blocks and sand all the edges with a palm sander, get off any slivers or any rough surfaces to make sure that it's going to be nice and smooth to handle and easy to get the blocks in and out of the tower. As you can see, it's quite messy. After cleaning the blocks off, I'm now starting to apply stain to them, simply using a cloth and dipping it in there and applying it to every surface. I'm going to leave one surface without stain so that I can let it dry, flip it over, and do the other side. So now I'm just making sure that the stain is as even as possible and that we're not going to have any darker or lighter patches. Just make sure it's nice and even. I did find in particular with this dark red cherry that the stain took a long time to dry. So I would say if you're finding that it's taking too long to finish it drying, just maybe wipe the pieces down and that'll help the drying process. After letting it dry, flipping them over, I'm now going to go through and stain the other side. Now with the gray stain, now you'll find that every color of stain applies a little bit differently and gives you different coloring. I was a little worried at some points that it wasn't as dark, but really that's just the nature of this particular color. So I just proceed the same as I did. The clean cloth, a new set of gloves, and working through 18 pieces of every color. Finally, I'm applying the golden pecan color. Now this barely looked like it did anything, but it does help to preserve the wood, give it a little bit of coloring, and gives it that more finished appeal. Now that all the pieces are stained, letting them dry, I'm going to make the base. It's a 16-inch wide piece of pine, and I'm cutting off 2 12-inch pieces in order to make the sides of the crate. And then for the bottom of the crate, I'm going to set the fence instead to 22.5 inches to give me enough space in order to fit all the pieces properly. Now I'm going to cut the two side rails. This is 4-inch pine, and I'm also going to make them 22.5 inches long. With the pieces cut and sanded, it's now time to lay out the handle and all the holes to screw it together. I've 3D printed a couple of jigs, which are really going to come in handy here. You could use cardboard or thin piece of wood, but I like the 3D printed version because it gives me the exact dimensions of what I designed. Need room for a handle, and I'm going to mark around here the space that I want before the edge of the side rails. Then I use the jig in order to put the holes in, and when I put it all together, it's all going to line up properly. On the sides, I also put a step in my jig because, as you'll see when we put it together, there needs to be a bit of an offset in order to fit all of the pieces. Edges were fine. Now I'm just marking the center so that the holes there will also line up. And now I repeat on the other end piece. After that, I can pre-drill the holes on the two side rails. And lastly, I need to mark the holes in the base. The hope when you do this with a jig is that when you go to put it together, all the holes line up and all the pieces that you've pre-drilled. And I was really happy with this project that it turned out exactly the way that I planned. Lastly, before I start assembling, I'm going to use a little larger drill bit, one that's slightly bigger than the screw head, in order to create a little bit of a countersinking. I'm going to do very shallow drill holes, just enough so the head of the screw will sink below the surface of the wood. Now it's time to put it together. We've done everything right, all our holes should line up properly. And as we put the first one in and line up the second one, you can see, yes indeed, they do line up the way that I drilled them. And that's always a great feeling. The other side. You can really see here how a little bit of planning makes it so much easier than trying to line everything up and hold it and clamp it and everything as you're trying to put the sides on. Now the side rails, once again you'll see that offset come into place as I attach them, how the sides of the wood don't meet evenly, but there's a little bit of an offset. That's in order to create a little bit of extra room for the pieces so that they'll fit properly within the crate. It really was that close of a fit. The last couple screws in the side rails and the assembly of the base, the crate will be complete. Last thing we need to do is cut out the handholds for lifting the crate, and here I just drilled a few pilot holes, and now I'm going to go around with the jigsaw and cut those out. After careful with the jigsaw, you can get a pretty nice neat cut. Now I use the palm sander again just to take off a little bit of the sharp edges and smooth it out a little, make it a little more comfortable for your hand. After doing the other side, I now have time to apply the stain. Again, I'm using the golden pecan, pretty light, but gives it just a little bit more of a finished look and helps to protect the wood because we're going to be using it outside. Here's a couple different looks of the finished tower and the different designs you can make. And then we had to try it out even though there was snow still on the ground outside. Shocking twist is quite literally a shock. When we were on vacation last year, we came across a place that offered adventures. One of those adventures was a shock Jenga. And what they used was a shock dog collar, which is used to deter dogs from bad behavior like barking or running away from home. And it uses a remote that someone else can control. So what they did is simply strap on the collar onto the person that's actually going to be removing the blocks, and then somebody else gets to take a turn shocking them as a distraction. Now, if you keep it on the lowest setting, it's really not much more than a little irritation, and you could be shocked like that all day. It would just be kind of a little bit distracting or a little bit annoying as you try to remove a block. But if you were to crank it up to max settings, then you get some reactions, like you saw me at the beginning of the video. So it's a great way to add a little spice and adventure when you try this out for yourself. I'll include a link in the description where you can find the same one that I got, but basically just an Amazon search will give you plenty of options of things that you could find shock colors that are available. And one word of caution, just make sure that you trust the people that are going to be controlling the shock, and also that you set some guidelines that, you know, maybe it's only a couple shocks per turn or something like that, or everybody agrees that you're going to set the setting at a reasonable level, because it is something that can be quite painful, though not harmful if you turn it up too high. Now you can see the steps it takes to make a giant set of Jenga for yourself. If you enjoy watching these videos, please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to be notified of future videos. We post a new video every week, so be sure to check back regularly. Remember, in your DIY projects, don't be afraid to be bolder.